Hi boys and girls. So you should be watching this video on Thursday before you do your RCC assignment today. So I know over the week we've been getting together with Mrs. Delagrada and doing the pages together, but today are technically your independent portions of the RCC assignments, okay? So I'm going to help you out to a certain extent, and then the rest you're going to be doing some on your own, okay? Don't panic. Once I prepare you, you guys will be totally ready for this, okay? So I want to remind you that in reading this week, we've been focusing on inferencing, okay? And inferencing is like a sensible, which means reasonable, that makes sense, okay? A sensible guess or a prediction, okay? And in order to make an inference, we use information that we already know, okay? So this information we already know might be coming from the text. We already know the information that we've read already in this text. And sometimes the information is going to come from prior knowledge. So just certain things that we know about already, okay? All those different things can help us to make inferences or predictions about what is going to be happening in the text, okay? So pretty much we're just thinking about what might be happening next, okay? Or how someone might be feeling because of something, okay? We're reading between the lines a little here. So today you're going to be responsible for reading Why Salt. It's on page 88 of your RCC book, okay? So if you're not there just yet, please pause me and take a minute to open up to page 88, okay? And then I'm going to jump in. So I printed this in black and white to save some ink, but I want you guys to be looking at your picture and just get a little familiar with your text. What are you noticing here? Well, I'm assuming that this is probably going to be about salt, and I see a picture of salt. I see a little text feature here. It's a map, okay? All right, and I'm going to get started. So what I'm going to be doing for you is reading you the text aloud, and it's your job to be following along on your book. Okay? So remember, you can't be reading if you're not looking at words. So please make sure you're following along in your own text as I'm reading it to you. Okay? And we're going to start right here, the first paragraph, where it says 1. Today, salt is given out freely in shakers and packets at our favorite restaurants. We can buy it cheaply at any grocery store. But it hasn't always been so easy to get salt. This tiny crystal cube has played a much more important role in history than just flavoring our fries. Around the world, cities were founded, roads were built, wars were fought, and trade routes were established, all for one reason. Humans can't live without salt. Literally, because of this simple fact, salt became a valuable item a long time ago. People who controlled salt had power. Around 2,000 years ago, some of the people with salt and power were the Romans. I'm on paragraph 2 here. One way Rome controlled salt was by building villages along the Mediterranean coast. This gave them access to the sea where they could harvest salt. One of the first great roads built by Romans is called Via Salarium, or Salt Road. It's the oldest road in Italy today. As you might have guessed, it was built to transport salt. That means to bring salt around, right? Transport is like to travel or to ship. I'm on paragraph 3 at the bottom here. As Rome grew, it became a trading center, and salt was one of the main items traded there. Salt was so important in the daily lives of the Romans that soldiers were paid in blocks of salt. Wow, that's how they were paid instead of money. This pay was called salarium argentums, or salt money, giving us our word salary. So salary is how much people make in a year. In fact, the word soldier comes from the Latin soldere, meaning to give salt. Interesting. We're on page 89 now. Throughout history and around the world, governments have regulated and taxed salt. Salt played a role in the history of our country, too. In both the Revolutionary and Civil Wars, keeping enough salt for the soldiers was important. In these and other wars, enemies have tried to keep salt away from each other. The history of the world is overflowing with stories of salt. Who knew salt was so important, so famous? We're on paragraph 5. It's called, What's So Important About Salt? Let's figure out why. Human beings can't live without salt. It is a basic ingredient in our bodies. Salt is in our tears, sweat, saliva, blood, and even in our urine. Without this mineral, our cells, nerves, and muscles couldn't do their jobs properly. However, too much salt can cause kidneys to work overtime, blood vessels to swell, and blood pressure to go dangerously high. In this picture, I noticed that they have little salt cubes that it looks like they're kind of divvying out here. It says, Roman soldiers were paid in salarium argentans, or salt money. I'm on the last page of this text here, page 90. Okay, we should be at paragraph 6 up at the top. Our health depends on having the right amount of salt in our bodies. Generally, the human body is very good at keeping our salt levels balanced, but sometimes that balance can be thrown off. Our diets, for example, might contain extremely low or extremely high amounts of salt. If this goes on for too long, there could be serious consequences, or even death. Wow. When early humans survived on meat they hunted, their bodies got enough salt from the animals they ate. As people learned to grow their vegetables and grains and began to eat less meat, salt became more important, and it was often hard to find. The need for salt and the limited supply of it made salt very valuable. Okay. And then in this picture here it says, when people began to grow crops, they ate less meat and needed to find new ways to get salt into their diets. Okay, so like before humans started to grow a lot of food to eat, they used to hunt more and they would eat the meat from animals. And animals would have a lot of salt in them. So humans were getting salt from that animal meat. Then once they started to eat more crops that they were growing, vegetables and corn and stuff, they weren't getting as much salt. So they may have been in a little bit of a sticky situation because they really needed to get that salt. So as an example, for an inference I might make, knowing that these people did not have very much salt anymore, and because of my knowledge from the text, I know that they need salt to survive. So I'm inferencing that maybe they're going to do something like fight over salt, or pay a lot of money for salt, or trade for salt, okay? So that's just an example of an inference I'm making after reading this whole text, because I'm thinking, well, if they don't have enough salt, what can I infer that they might do next so that they can solve that problem, okay? So now that we've just read that text together, you're going to go into Miss Delagrada's post. Remember, her post is attached right into my checklist. So it will be called Thursday RCC pages that you can type in or something, okay? And when you pull it up, it's going to look something like this. So you're going to go through each question and read them to yourself. Since I read the whole passage to you, I want you to try and read some of these questions on your own, okay? If you're really having difficulty with a word or something, you can ask a parent. But try and see if you can read them on your own, okay? And then you're going to be making some inferences based on information in the text to answer the questions, okay? At the end, there's a short response question. So I'm going to read that one to you. That's part C. So remember, you're doing this all in the doc. You're highlighting the correct answer in yellow like Miss Delagrada showed you, okay? But for the last part, it's a short response, so you're going to have to type a little paragraph. So it says, write a response in correct paragraph form to answer the question. So I know when I write a correct paragraph, I start with indentation, right? And then I'm using proper grammar, capitalization, spelling, punctuation. And it says, how is the value of salt different today than it was in ancient Roman times? Include 3 details from the article to support your response. Edit carefully for capitalization, punctuation, and spelling. Use quotation marks if you quote the author directly. Okay, so what you're doing is you're comparing the value of salt. What is the difference between the value of salt with the ancient Roman people? Remember, the ancient Roman people salt is so valuable, they're literally sitting around a table divvying up their salt. How does that value of salt compare to us today? Okay? So I would guess that salt was probably a little bit more important to them than it is to us, right? And so in order to support that claim, if that's the claim you choose to make, you need to go back into your text and find evidence that tells why was salt so important to them? How do you know it was so important? Okay? So you need to make sure you're taking direct evidence, at least 3 pieces from the text in your short response. Okay? If you need any help, you can check in, but for the most part, since we just gave you this help through this video, you want to try and complete this assignment as independently as possible, okay? Because we want to see what you learned. So show me what you got, guys.